my league. This is going to be the Chinese playoffs, actually. This is the upper bracket matchup, and I'm going to need to change over a few of my settings because I just realized that I didn't take off the enable all the good stuff, but we'll get right on into the draft here. I'm at Lyrical Dota, joined today by GrandisV. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing all right, and it should be, as you said, some pretty good games from the Chinese region. Starting off, Newbie Young directly invited to the stage number 2, but Luminous did have to go through their groups, winning both of the series 2-0 against, I believe, FTD, as well as, who else did they play against? Just off the top of my head. Oh, no, they won against Esports Dream, VG Potential, and then lost against FTD, but still looking pretty strong in general. Although I think Newbie Young, I don't think it's out of line to say that they're favored going into this matchup. As far as their performance recently, they've been to Frankfurt, which in and of itself is pretty awesome, taking games off of C9 and Secret, and already we're well underway into the draft. Getting Tuscan Winter Wyvern, a great start for Newbie Young.
Yeah, definitely. They're looking really strong here. We do already have the Darkseer banned out, as well as the Doom Queen of Pain and the Shadow Fiend, which makes a good amount of sense. I'm a little bit surprised that we ended up seeing the Shadow Fiend banned out by the Radiant side, but there are sort of maybe a few things that we don't necessarily know about these teams. I have a feeling, considering they're both in this bracket and both somewhat on the not as well-known sides, Newbie Young has probably been the one that's been more well-known recently. Maybe they end up skirming against each other. One of these players is a little bit more comfortable in that Shadow Fiend, but I'm curious to see maybe a couple of sort of in-the-know bans. Also going to be having an Undying and a Bounty Hunter here with the Night Stalker, Viper, Gyrocopter, and Ursa. Very interesting bans and starts here in this game.
I think we're already kind of seeing that, especially with the Ursa ban. Just looking at their last couple of drafts, EHOME Luminous, for their carry player, like to put him on very aggressive physical damage carries like your Ursa. We saw a CK as well in the group stage of this tournament. So I think that's already starting to flavor the picks here and there. Maybe Newbie setting up themselves for a potential Alchemist pick later down the line. We've seen Ursa picked up as a way to counter him in the mid lane, just doing very well 1v1 and having a lot of physical burst to deal with him. But for now, it's just going to be a Wind Ranger sticking to their guns. But also just that Bounty Hunter and Undying, also very eHome Luminous-esque heroes. They really do like picking up that bounty.
Yeah, definitely. Well, should be very cool. Very interested to see how the rest of this goes. Wind Ranger, of course, just a very strong hero in the current meta, able to sort of consistently, knock on out and win the lane in aggressive fashion. I mean, Shackle Shot is always going to be relevant even into the late game. You've got the ability to just nuke on out the wave there with Power Shot. I think that it's not a big stretch of the imagination to say that Wind Ranger is one of the top tier heroes in the current meta. She does sometimes suffer a little bit from the magical burst damage that comes out, and as I say that, Lina is a hero that ends up coming into picked here, and there you go, Alchemist taken as well. Very, very interesting. So do you think this is then going to be a safe lane Alchemist? Hello?
Hello?
Hey, can you
Okay,
hear that?
you cut out there for a second.
Got it.
Yeah, as far as the lanes coming out from Newbie Young are concerned, I think this is probably going to be a Wind Ranger 1v1 versus the Lina in the mid lane. Although we could see the Lina as a support. It really depends on this fourth pick for Luminous. But one of the big advantages of putting the Wind Ranger mid over the Alchemist, I'd say, is the fact that it's really hard for Bounty Hunter to harass and be annoying to the Wind Ranger. Just pop that Wind Run, and then most of Bounty Hunter's harassment potential and most of what makes him so annoying when he's roaming around early is completely taken away. And for the Alchemist, it can be fairly difficult to deal with that bounty as he's moving around, but we're going to see the Chaos Knight. I'm really psyched to see this draft coming out from Luminous. Just looking through their last couple of games, you see these interesting picks like the CK and like the very early Bounty Hunter. And it should be a lot of fun to see how that plays out here. The minus armor from the crit coming out from Chaos Knight will help them deal with the Alchemist for sure, but still I'm not 100% on board, especially against the Winter Wyvern. When you pop that Phantasm, dropping a Winter's Curse, if you can isolate the real CK, or even with the Focus Fire, the amount of damage Newbie Young can return to the CK can be terrifying. Although their actual wave clear for the Phantasm illusions is fairly limited, so I could see this pick working.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I think that the other thing that works well here is the Bounty Hunter in conjunction with this draft, because one of the problems that CK ends up having as you scale into the later stages of the game is that he doesn't farm very efficiently. This is a hero that is mainly single target. Of course, that turns into multiple target when he pops his ulti, but you're not going to want to pop your ulti for farming. And if you do end up being able to supplement your sort of general farming in the lane income with a couple of track kills, all of a sudden you accelerate into these quick items. You get a Yasha, maybe you turn that on into a Manta, you get a heart and you're nigh unkillable. It's just a devastating combo when you end up being able to get a lot of farm on this hero. The big problem that you end up having is that he falls behind early. Now the question that I have really is he going to be able to, I mean obviously he's not going to be able to keep up and farm with the Alchemist, there's no question about that. The thing that I wonder is he going to be able to weather the storm of the early initial burst of that Alchemist farm, maybe getting into an early Medallion, into a Solar Crest that we've sometimes seen, or possibly we just end up seeing the Alchemist go for the crazy out farm where you have the Radiance into the Manta Octarine core. Both of those to me have their merits in this draft, and it's really going to come down to the way that Newbie Young want to run the rest of their draft.
Yeah, and it also depends on just how the early game goes. How aggressive is the bounty hunter? Are you able to find that farming space? Yes, maybe you can get away with that greedy farming build. I think the pressure is on EHOME Luminous to constrict that map space, because right now, if the game just goes on, it's a farm fest. Wind Ranger and Alchemist are going to be absolutely terrifying to go into. I think another interesting thing in this draft is the fact that we still don't know 100% how Luminous are going to lane everything. And now that the CK is on the board, the Lina might be a little bit more attractive to be put into the support role now that you have that guaranteed setup stun for Light Strike Array in the laning stage. Although Tusk might be able to dodge that Chaos Bolt with a well-timed snowball, we're probably going to be looking for another offlaner for Newbie Young here, or at the very least, just another support. The Zeus ban is pretty interesting coming out from Luminous. Had they not picked up the CK, I don't think you would have seen this ban. This is mostly just protecting the CK's illusions.
Yeah, I think so. Although I do like the matchup, I think that Lina is one of the few heroes that ends up really being able to stand up in lane against the Wind Ranger. It definitely could work to be able to have that setup stun. It would make a very strong laning combo. Phoenix is going to be the pick taken by Newbie Young. Kind of an interesting one. Can definitely be seen in those early group up and push and team fight all the time lineups that you end up seeing. Kind of also an interesting one against the CK, considering that illusions are going to be able to hit that egg. I believe that that's the way that they interact. Does it take any extra off?
No,
Okay.
it should just be the hero himself, and that's about it. So they might have difficulty actually killing off the egg once it's down on the ground. They are very melee heavy, although the Lina is pretty good against that. I think the big selling point here is the attack speed slow and what have you from the Phoenix, and also the Sunray is very good at dealing with illusions. Not 100% on the interaction between Fire Spirits and illusions. I think it slows their attack speed, although I could be wrong. I think it really is about that Sunray. No matter how tanky the Chaos Knight gets, whether we see that armlet in the heart that you were talking about earlier, it's going to be a very potent threat inside these team fights where Luminous don't have a great amount of reliable disable. The Light Strike and the Bolt from the CK is about all they have, and it's very projected.
Definitely. There we go. Last pickup, Slardar. So very interesting collection of heroes around this time. I'm curious to see how they lane it. As you said, I'm curious to see how they scale into the late game. Let me take off the little overlay because that would be absolutely terrible. Yet again, we're going to be taking a look. This is the upper bracket. We have 3 more sets of best of 3s today, and hopefully they all end up going absolutely wonderfully. But we'll try and do a quick little introduction for all of these players here. I'm going to do my very best with these team names, and I hope that you all forgive me if I get something wrong. For EHOME.L, Luminous, we're going to be taking a look at HYM, who's going to be playing on that Undying. Kaido is going to be on the CK. We do also have DXM on the Lina. Heading down towards the Rune is going to be a collection of Chinese characters that I was not able to translate before the beginning of this one. And Freeze is going to be playing on the Slardar at the last. And who do we have over there for the fine folks at Newbie Young?
For Newbie Young, Jaja is going to be farming safely and presumably on the Alchemist. SCC will be handling the Wind Ranger. He'll be supported by MRR on the Winter Wyvern, Lei on the Tusk, and Lee on the Phoenix going to the offlane. Actually, not 100% sure who the Phoenix is. He might be Iwi as well. That is his official tag, though. We'll just leave him as that face. I'm sure he'll be just fine going out into his lane.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's one of those things where if there is names that are assigned to these players, they're under tagged up things, you say them as they are because this is the name that they have chosen for themselves. That face is like he's holding a hand to his head, right? In terms of frustration or something. Isn't that what that emote is?
I think so. It's really hard to come up with a word for that, though. I'll just be Phoenix today.
Phoenix, sounds good. Absolutely great. Does look like they're going to be moving on up here for the top rune, trying to secure that one, if at all possible, of course. Alchemist needing that for the very early stages of this game. We do have several heroes in the area, and it does look like at least the Undying and the CK could come down here and try and mess around, at least potentially with the Phoenix. But of course, Icarus Dive is going to mean that Phoenix always gets away from there, unless there's some really bad timings with the Icarus Dive into a stun, which I don't imagine we'll be seeing.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard for them to stop this Phoenix from getting experience. The amount of poke they have in this lane also isn't that great. This is one of the disadvantages of them going for that Slaughter last pick and then putting the Lina in the mid lane. Their killing potential on the Phoenix is almost nil. Still, the Bounty Rune top is going to be sat on by Jaja. This is going to be a lot of gold for his Alchemist unless the Bounty Hunter can snipe it. How good is your clicking, Bounty? He wants it so bad.
Oh, he got it!
Snipe it. That's awesome. It might cost him his life, though.
Oh, he's going to try and dodge it on out. I don't think he gets out of this one okay. He's going to be able to go back invis. The dust is going to wear off pretty soon. Oh, there's the Phoenix, though. I think that's worth it,
That's totally worth it.
You be able to, it's not just the gold and experience you get, but also the amount that you deny out. And yeah, perfectly fine. As we do end up seeing a nice little gold change there into their favor. And of course, he's just going to start roaming around again in a second or two here. And they do end up dropping down a sentry ward in the mid lane. Actually, two of them relatively close, so that way they can see the Bounty Hunter coming in from afar. And SCC is going to be able to see them there as we do eat through a couple of these sentry wards. And these two are actually touching each other also.
Another thing that happens there for that first blood is SCC skilling up the power shot, although this is the right move, obviously, and it gets him a nice advantage in lane 1v1. For now, he has no win run, so the Bounty Hunter is going to be able to be quite annoying, especially with that D sentry, at least on one of them.
Yeah.
And now the second one taken as well.
Oh, it's just so good, the value that you end up getting there. Opening up the last hits and denies, because that's a pretty important little tab everybody wants to see. Up top lane, Phoenix and the Tusk are actually going to be staying together off lane. They do end up getting a nice stun down. Oh, Icarus dive away last second. The amount of damage that came out there, very surprising, as we do end up seeing the Tusk and the Bounty Hunter exchange a couple of blows, but it's worth noting, Phoenix is also a strength hero, so you get that taken away, you also lose a decent amount of damage, something that is not often thought about.
Yeah, of course. And Phoenix has a naturally low HP pool with 2 stacks down to 378 max. It really hurts, especially when you only have the 3 armor for the Ring of Protection again.
Oh, they end up getting the first blood. Undying picks it on up in a pretty surprising kill there. We do have the Bounty Hunter diving this Tusk under tower, just going to continue to hit away here, and isn't going to be able to change over the creep aggro at least for a second. So takes about 2 or 3 pot shots there from the side, and this is a very dangerous lane right now for the Phoenix, surprisingly so.
Yeah, it's mostly just due to the damage that they have. Is your second kill, this one going to the side of EHOME? Bounty Hunter, although it looks a little bit awkward for him to tank the tower like that, knew he was safe. Tusk's Ice Shards were on cooldown, didn't have the mana for it anyway. So it is going to cost him a little bit of HP, not going to bother him too much. But maybe on the other side of the map, down the safe lane for Newbie Young's side, they're looking reasonably good down here. But Jaja's farm is slowed down. The Slaughter is just, I don't know, putting the screws to him, really being quite annoying in this lane.
It's been pretty decent, I would say. I mean, if you compare the Alchemist to the safe lane of the CK, it's been a little bit more into his favor. But again, this is sort of one of those situations where you want to really get off to a great start on the Alchemist, and he has been able to get away with putting, obviously, that early point. The Greevil's Greed, taking 2 in the Acid Spray. I'm curious if he's going to take a point in stun, feeling like he's a little bit pressured, or if he's just going to go straight for that build where you end up going the Max Greed. It could go kind of either way. Do you have a preference in terms of what you might like?
I kind of like the Max Greed here. The killing potential they have with the stun is pretty limited. Winter Wyvern's not really going to be able to do that much until later on, once you get higher levels in that Winter Blast and the ultimate. But now here comes Bounty Hunter. Yeah,
he's going to be able to lay down a good amount of damage. The Slithering Crush comes through, and that's going to be a dead Alchemist just like that. EHOME.L end up taking out another kill real quick, and that is on the safe lane. Definitely a little bit more impactful than just killing off that Phoenix in the off lane.
Yeah. Even though he's having a reasonable time when it comes to the CS. This is a safe lane farming Alchemist, and he hasn't had that many runes to work with. Didn't get that first bounty rune, is a lot further behind than where he'd like to be. Only a couple hundred gold ahead of the CK, which at this point in the game means next to nothing.
Yeah. Well, level 4 now, going to be able to get off one of these hits. Does have a stun in a second if the CK wants to commit that, but just using the Reality Rift for a little bit of harassment, and This is the way you kind of need to play that CK, considering that Reality Rift has a little bit of a lower mana cost than a stun. If you're able to bait out the Icarus dive early, that means you're going to be able to initiate a second time later on with the stun. There's going to be the jump back, going to be able to get a lot of damage down, not quite able to kill off the Phoenix, but was able to force on out that Icarus dive, which has a relatively long cooldown. And with the Mango popped right now for CK, needs to be careful. Can't really stay in lane that efficiently.
Oh yeah, the Phoenix needs to be very, very careful. In fact, might be in a little bit of trouble if they can catch the eyes on the bird for the sun.
Oh!
Nighttime vision gonna fuck about. That was so close.
Bounty Hunter, meanwhile, able to get a kill on the Winter Wyvern, running on down towards the tier 2 bottom. Sorry I ended up missing that one, but Orb of Venom down, as well as the little bit of damage that you can get coming out from the Invis. It's just going to have a good old time. But top lane, they're going to be able to find on out. The CK get another couple of Fire Spirits on him. He does end up popping the salve. I think he's going to go down, able to dodge the Icarus dive, but I still think he's going to end up falling as the Icebird comes in, gets the last hit. And it looks like Undyne is just going to have to look on in dismay as, well, can he actually find a kill here? He has boots. There's a chance. He does have a little bit faster movement speed, but I don't think he has enough damage or mana to get that kill.
Yeah, if he has another decay, another soul rip, anything, that would have been just fine. Bounty Hunter's gonna suicide to Roshan. Needed an express trip back to the well after diving so deep. He never went back to base, so he is going to get there eventually. The lane that we haven't talked about much is mid lane. I think for good reason. Kind of as to be expected. It's going pretty evenly for either side. I don't think this really is going to mean that much for either team. Both the Wind Ranger and Lina have a good amount of ways to contribute to these kills once they're needed. Right now, they're not.
And Windrunner is just going to run on back to base now. Does have enough to pick on up the phase boots a little bit recently. And this is going to allow the Winter Wyvern to stack on up the hard camp, then move back in, soak up a little bit of experience. Definitely necessary. Although we do have a bit of a dive forward, or backwards rather, as Phoenix needs to get out of there again. Well, the Phoenix has died a couple of times. It's worth noting it is level 4. And, you know, you compare that to the enemy side, and it's been a relatively decent offlane. It hasn't been that terrible.
Slaughter is
actually, no,
6,
never mind.
Though,
I'm tripping.
Yeah.
Okay, no, yeah, he's definitely further ahead. All right, that's going to be a jump forward. I don't think that he's going to be able to kill off this Alchemist. Actually, Alch doesn't have ulti at this point. The TP is going to come on in. Going to try and see if they can save him. Tusk is here as well. They do have shards as well as Snowball if they want to commit for it. Not going to be able to trap him in, and not going to be able to catch him with the Snowball either. So that's just a quick little runaway.
Yeah, it looks like Slaughter had his hotkeys for his Mango and TP switch, so he wasn't able to pop that Mango. Even if he did, probably doesn't get that kill. Not having a TP on Slaughter is not the end of the world. Just a little bit of lost gold there. At the very least, it's a TP for a TP from the enemy. Yeah, they're going to force out that rotation. Wind Rangers moved into the woods, and they're going to keep on giving that room to the Winter Wyvern, which I do quite like. Just getting that level 6 and those higher levels in Splinter Blast is going to be very important for stopping aggressive moves like this with Bounty walking under a sentry.
They're going to be able to find him out again. There's the Shackle, going to connect. Do have a follow-up Snowball in a second. That's going to follow as well. Power shot through, and that's a quick and easy kill. And I think that was just something where they might have caught sight of him moving on by the tower, potentially, or one of those other spots. There aren't a lot of other sentries on the map right now, but they do obviously have that vision from the tower. So probably either that or expected that he was going to come on in. Either way, they find a kill. Very, very important at this point in time, as we do again have the Phoenix here. Getting chased on down a little bit by this Undyne as well as the CK. And one wrong move is all it's going to take, as well as a nice duration stun, and that's definitely going to be a kill.
Yeah, even though we've seen a couple of kills here and there, this is more or less just the calm before the storm. Once we get that level 6 for the Bounty, and Bounty's going to open up on Jaja.
They're going to be able to find him out there. One last click is all it's going to take, and Bounty Hunter takes him down. Level 4 in his own right, trying to build up towards that level 6, gets the track goals whenever possible. Also worth knowing, Winter Wyvern's hit 5 now. I think that the other thing is that, of course, the maxing the Splinter Blast makes a lot of sense here. If it's a lineup that you feel like is going to try and be aggressive early, being able to get this maxed out by level 7 is so good in terms of your ability to counter push as a Winter Wyvern. You're able to one-shot range creeps, and it just takes 2 to be able to clear out a whole creep wave. And considering that it's also on that 7-second cooldown, very, very good for being able to push those out.
Yeah. Maybe another interesting development when it comes to item progression. Jaja has committed. Ooh, they find the Bounty again.
They're going to be able to catch him. Do they have enough? He's actually running the wrong way back into the Sentry, trying to take on out the Winter Wyvern, ends up falling to the Dragon Slave. They catch on in the Alchemist as well. A quick couple kills. They are going to be able to hit the Shackle, keeping alive the Alchemist with the Snowball as well. Very nicely done. Doesn't get out the Light Strike Ray, and also misses the Dragon Slave, but able to get him with one last right click. Meanwhile, off to the side, the Bounty Hunter is still running in. Worth noting that the Courier has made a his way all the way down to the medium camp, and they spot on out this stack as well. So realizing that they need to come on in and contest this farm whenever they can and not just give that away to the Alchemist. Really good reactions here by EHOME, but I kind of am feeling like they're going to be in a situation where they're not going to be able to. I guess that the fact that it hasn't been Alchemist that's been able to take these is a good part.
Yeah, that's at least something for them. In a vacuum, that trade's still pretty good for EHOME. And a lot of it comes down to pretty awkward Tusk Shards, which completely walls off the Alchemist. He is able to remedy that a little bit. Ooh. Oh, Bounty Hunter is still sticking around. It looks like he's not going to be able to stop this stack, currently sitting in the Acid Spray. He knows where the sentry is. He'll soak a little bit of experience here, so that's nice enough for the Bounty. But yeah, it seems that that's not a major victory for either side. Alchemist will still be able to get a couple of these creeps. Bounty Hunter hasn't been able to snag on or any of them.
Yeah, he does soak up that experience, which is definitely necessary, and that's actually his level 6.
Oh, that's huge, actually.
Yeah, and then he gets the track's going to start moving around here. Also worth noting that track did reveal that they knew there was a ward up here on the high ground, so they're going to be able to come on in and deward that one in a little bit. We do have off to the side now, Tusk jumping in on top of the Slaughter, gets the crush off to keep him a little bit at bay, but they get one hit from the Arctic Burn, and that could be enough. No, with no shards back up for another 7 seconds, they weren't ever going to be able to find that kill. As again, another couple of tracks, and Bounty Hunter runs away, just giggling to himself.
Yeah, even though he's died 3 times in this lane stage, Bounty Hunter is doing just fine. He's gotten so much intel for the team. He's gotten deep wards. He's going to get a D ward now. And really all he's wanted to get this entire game is level 6. And for the Slaughter also, doing just fine for himself. Hasn't died, is halfway towards his blink.
It does seem like EHOME are in a really good position to be able to win this. You know, obviously net worth and that type of stuff matters a little bit less at this point, but they have been able to build up a little bit of a lead, and that's generally, I mean, if you consider the fact that Alchemist is on the enemy team, that's definitely worthy of noting, at least, and about a 500 experience as well. I think the other thing is that they're set up to be able to be aggressive in the next couple of minutes here, and they're set up to be able to take fights. Once this Slaughter ends up getting a Blink Dagger, which is only about 1,000 gold away from being able to pick that up, he is going to be an absolute monster running around this map, and just being able to just, you know, get the initiations that they need on top of these heroes.
Yeah, a lot of the focus on the next couple minutes of this game, at least for Newbie, in order to try and bring this back into where it's a comfortable pace for them, is going to rest on SCC. The Wind Rangers at the top of the net worth chart, currently amped up, and here comes Bounty. Oh, they'll have to wait for a little bit more help, and it's coming. Smoked up. The CK and Dying are coming out from the left-hand side, and SCC already blowing the wind run. This could get sketchy if he goes up to lane. It looks like he is going to smell something's up. Are they going to go for the dive, though? Looks like they just might.
Yeah, they do have the track speed. Oh, wasn't quite able to get into range. Actually, I think that CK could have gotten that one, but feeling a little bit scared to dive too deep into the enemy territory. Considering that they were in a position where, oh, Winter Wyvern has a TP. Yeah, they all have TPs. They probably could have gotten there in time. Alchemist going for an early Vitality booster. Kind of an interesting build there.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that when that fight broke out in the left-hand side of the Radiant Jungle. This really, to me, just seems like he needs effective HP now. And he'll probably build that into his Octarine Core later, or a Heart, regardless, just a tankability item in his 6-slotted build. And it isn't going to delay any huge pickups that much if he's able to find space, but he's just not right now, at least.
Bounty Hunter in on top of this Alchemist. He is not afraid at all, just running right up on top of him. It is worth noting that Lena and Undyne are in the area, but if they end up catching sight of him again, they do have a sentry here. They know, oh wait, no, that's the Dire sentry, so they don't know he's there. But they do know he's around the area, which is, they need to be really careful here, because if he gets caught out at the beginning of this fight, that just pretty much spells the end of any type of push or anything that they have going.
Now, big pickup for Newbie Young. You have the SCC Blink Dagger up. The Wind Ranger Shackles could very easily turn a couple of these fights, and he really is the hero to make things happen, but the Blink is up for EHOME as well, and I think the Slaughter's Blink is just a little bit scarier, just with the amount of follow-up that you have after it. If you blink it and shackle, the amount of damage that comes out from your auxiliary heroes just isn't nearly as high as what you'll get from the follow-up from Alina after the Slaughter Blink in.
Oh, there we go. They're able to catch on out the Bounty Hunter. He is going to fall here, and that's what I was talking about. All of a sudden, you can't be aggressive anymore once your Bounty Hunter goes down. Maybe they try to, but I think it's more worth it here at this point for Lena just to farm on up her Yules, and she's pretty close to it. So I think that that's probably going to be the next pickup here in just a couple of seconds. And meanwhile, the Slaughter are looking to maybe try and take a quick kill here on this Alchemist. If he waits for the ulti to go off, I think that there's a chance he could maybe take this one, but he would be stuck on the wrong side of the cliff, and that just gets a little bit too dicey.
Yeah, the allies are too close by. Smoke is going to be popped in mid. I don't think that was spotted by the Dire Observer Ward, although it does get close. I think they were just out of vision. Now the Slaughter is getting collapsed upon.
They do have a snowball here as well as, oh, nice jump away. I feel like there was a chance there that he might have been able to catch him, but it does look like CK is going to TP out. Maybe a little bit of an engagement over here. They are going to be able to have Winter's Curse up for this fight if they want to. Egg has now been popped for the Lina, dropping very low. There's the chance for the Shackle, not going to end up connecting, but they do end up getting the kill with the Focus Fire. We also have the Winter's Curse down, and the Tombstone is looking to fall. Nice double Shackle. They're going to connect. It doesn't look like Freeze is quite able to make enough of a turnaround. He does want to get anything that he possibly can, but if you take a look at this, CK is going to end up falling, and it looks like Slardar is as well. He does get out of here, but it's a little bit too much to ask for him to try and turn the whole course of a team fight when your Lina has already gotten picked off at the very start of it, not even able to throw out the Laguna Blade.
That was just such a hard fight for EHOME to take. They were so spread out. You're going to have another track thrown down by the Bounty Hunter. He's still maintaining amazing vision for the team. Still, how that fight goes down, you have the Slaughter and the CK down towards the south. All the rest of the teammates are scattered everywhere, and Newbie are just able to isolate everybody quite nicely. The Blink Dagger from SCC maintaining perfect positioning inside that fight, and also just being able to get off the Supernova. It works out perfectly for them. And EHOME, you never see a clean Blink crush. It was a defensive maneuver by the time that Freeze went for it. And it does get them the Winter Wyvern, that's something, but EHOME aren't going to stop, even after losing the last team fight, are going to look to get aggressive still.
Well, that's the point that you ended up making right there, is that it wasn't a clean initiation for them. This Smoke Gank definitely can be, and I think that this is probably the right move for them. They need to try and group together and make something happen. That being said, the CK isn't with them, which might end up meaning that Newbie Young feels a little bit more comfortable at their situation. Oh, okay, he ends up getting in the end. Don't worry, guys, we got it. He ends up finding the crush, gets the last hit right on the very edge of it. It does look like Tombstone's going to stay alive a little bit longer. Soul Rip has already been committed now. Walrus Punch Down, that's going to kill off the Undyne, and the Light Strike Array doesn't hit either as the Snowball ends up dodging a lot of that damage. Nice Yules keeping Lina alive a little bit longer. It does look like Slardar might be looking for another opportunity to initiate. Well done there to get two with the stun, but now they're going to end up taking on out the CK. Nice power shot finishing them off, and it's also worth knowing that the Bounty Hunter was able to find a quick little pick off over there. I think that he took out the Tusk, if I'm not mistaken. It was a buyback on that Phoenix, though.
Yeah, and he is able to drop a couple of Fire Spirits after the buyback, but doesn't find a good angle for the Supernova. That's still reasonable for Newbie Young. I think that's a great fight for them, but it could have been a lot cleaner. And with Track Gold going the way of EHOME, they're going to just get so much income after that. And that tilts the scales maybe in their favor, especially with this Tier 1 tower going down in the favor of Newbie after the fact. Yeah, that was such a mess. And now we have the Sacred Relic up for the Alchemist. The hardest part for Jaja, yeah, it's ridiculous how much gold this guy can generate. It's going to get even worse once he has that Radiance, or at least worse for EHOME.
Yeah, they're in a good spot right now. I think that fight was about the best that you could hope for, and now it does look like there's going to be another Smoke Gank. Just Smoke Ganks every couple of seconds here. Bounty Hunter is going to be the one to break this one in just a second or two. Does end up getting spotted on out now, and he's going to get taken now. Wants to try and see if he can deny himself neutrals. Doesn't quite get it as Wind Ranger picks up that last hit. But a quick pickup, I don't know if that's the one that they necessarily wanted. It seems like they wanted to actually go into a team fight, and they're kind of looking for more now. Going to see if they can maybe push down the Tier 2 tower here in the top lane.
They'll take whatever they can find. It's a free kill. They don't have to spend anything for it. And maybe they find the CK. He stuck around way too long.
Yeah, that was not... Okay, he stuck around for a little while there. Walrus Punch could have come down, and that's going to be a dead CK. Looking for their opportunity to reinitiate into this one. I don't think this is the play. And now with the Urn Charge, Slardar can't blink. Sun does come down now. Going to trap the Slardar at the very last second with the shards. Winter's Curse down on top of him. Tombstone has been committed, but are they going to be able to really get anything here? Two-man Shackle as well. Freeze as well as the Lina are going to end up going down in just a second or two. So much damage over time. Newbie Young are taking complete and total control of this game, and there is not a whole lot that they can do to stop it. Undyne tries to decay the trees, spreading rot amongst them, but oh, another Shackle not going to connect. But just look at the damage with that Maelstrom picked on up by the Wind Ranger. It's just too much to deal with. Triple kill right now on SCCC.
Yeah, he's running this game. The SCC Wind Rangers doing amazing work for them. Consistently, 2 hero Shackles. It's been a pleasure to watch. The Blink Dagger purchase is paid for itself and then some, and it's bought the space for the Alchemist. If we take a look at this game like 10 minutes ago, EHOME, this Alchemist was having a terrible time, and they're feeling pretty good about their situation in this game. All of the tools are coming up to get a good timing Blink Dagger on the starter, they get the level 6 for the bounty, and then everything just stops. It's not how you expect the game to go once you get those big major team fighting and pick-off oriented tools. But really has been the shackles to disrupt every single one of their initiations. And now we have a point booster, more than half of an AGS up for SCC. It really feels like EHOME are losing grip, and they're going to try and go for another aggressive rotation. If this doesn't work out, their chances in this game seem to be looking like they're slim to none.
They are going to be going to maybe try and take on out this Roshan. I think that this is just about the best that they can do. I mean, again, a light strike rate coming on down and going to be able to burst through it pretty quickly, but it's a dangerous move. I think it's probably something they definitely needed, but this is just giving more and more time here for the Alchemist to farm on up his items. Also worth noting right now, Alchemist has more last hits than the Wind Ranger, did go for that max greed build, and still she has higher net worth than he does, just based upon how good the kills have been, how much she's been able to be effective. 11-0-1 right now. This hero is completely and totally ripping apart EHOME, and I kind of feel like when we end up going to game 2 here, regardless of what the outcome of this game is, they're going to end up banning out that Wind Ranger.
Yeah, or at the very least, just preparing themselves to deal with the Wind Ranger a little bit better. Their supports when you're behind don't really offer anything, really, outside of a little bit of utility, especially the Undying hasn't really felt all that effective inside these fights. The Tombstones haven't been protected well because they just can't keep them up. And the biggest issue for EHOME right now is the fact that CK is super far behind, and it's really hard to find a way to get him back into this game just by the nature of the hero. Can't flash farm very well, and isn't able to fight nearly as effectively as the likes of the Wind Ranger or even the Alchemist at this point, who's quite tanky with his ultimate running and with that casual vitality booster. Now the boots of travel up, we're well on our way towards the Manta Octarine should he want to go for it.
So where did that Undying end up laning? Was he sitting in the bot lane down there as well, I believe? No, he was in the top lane, right, with the Phoenix. So that's the thing that kind of surprises me. The fact that he was able to be a part of this early, somewhat aggressive lane against the Phoenix. I didn't see him pull too many times, but even still, he hasn't really been able to have the effect that he's wanted. Currently the lowest in terms of net worth, the lowest in terms of levels, and I'm not sure exactly what went wrong.
Yeah, neither am I. I think it's mostly down to just the smoking's not working out very well for EHOME. They commit so much time, especially from the CK, where you have the Wind Ranger farming inside the woods, where you have the Alchemist farming, and EHOME jump in, they take a even fight, not even when it comes to kills, but with track, the gold's pretty close. So fight breaking out top.
Yeah, they're going to end up getting a reinitiation here. I don't know if they find the kill that they need. The Winter's Curse was committed onto Freeze. He's going to end up going down, and now it looks like CK is as well. No real respite for him, and he is going to get taken out beyond godlike. Yeah, this Wind Ranger, everything that you could possibly want. And a casual Midas picked up 21 minutes. Why not? They're doing what they want to do on Newbie Young.
Oh yeah, Phoenix doesn't really need any items this game. The Supernovas haven't been killed, for one, and Phoenix doesn't really need any major utility for the team, so just propel yourself towards that level 16. Oh, easy pick off on Undying in mid. SEC, as you said, has everything he could want. That's even before the Aghanim Scepter is delivered, which might even be a little annoying for him since he's not going to have that focus fire for another 50 seconds or so. Still, SEC is balling out of control. And then you also have this Alchemist that's nagging at you at the back of your mind. EHOME are starting to get desperate.
Yeah, they got the Aegis up on Lena, which was a good thing, and 2,000 gold as well. So if they want to, they're going to be able to have buyback to defend. Like, honestly, at this point, even though they have Aegis, I feel like Newbie Young are comfortable fighting into their lineup at this point. Like, they don't have to, certainly. It's going to be a blink dagger for the Lena, so a lot of blinks all over the map here. Maybe hoping to be able to find a pickoff. But again, you got Tusk sitting right behind this Alchemist right now. They're going to go and try and find a kill. And Snowball is going to keep him alive just a second longer, I think. Are they going to be able to pick him up? No, they get the pickoff. Well done there. With the blink reveal, they're able to find that kill, and it does look like the Tusk is going to end up paying for it also. They were trying to do some type of turnaround. They are going to be able to get the kill on the Slardar. Now, though, as well, you've got a whole bunch of problems. This Wind Ranger is just chasing after people. Gets a quick kill on the Bounty Hunter, and unfortunately isn't going to be able to find anybody else over here. But still, 14-0-3, 126 last hits, and 12k net worth at 23 minutes in.
It's a big net worth swing in the favor of EHOME. They get themselves 1673 gold compared to the 332 picked up by Newbie Young. Most of that's in the pockets of the bounty hunter, and that's all fine and good. I think that's the move that they have to make. It's still just not enough. They need that alchemist pick off time and time again, and while they're going for that pick, they're not farming in their woods. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Tusk was sitting so far back. He didn't expect the Lena to be there with the blink dagger. She picked up side shot, hadn't shown that off, I'm pretty sure, and thought she was probably just farming up on the enemy's side in the woods. So that's nice and all for EHOME. It's a step in the right direction, but they need a lot more where that came from to start putting a dent in the advantage, especially of these big cores. Alchemist is hardly phased by that kill, and in fact, the most annoying part for him is the fact that he's just off the map for a little under a minute.
Yeah, definitely. Which, yeah, I mean, it is relevant, you know.
Oh, yeah,
it's worth talking
something.
about. Bounty Hunter picks on up the Bounty Rune. It does look like he's going to not run into a ward because this is a dire sentry ward. So still safe, at least for the moment, trying to find any opportunity to get off a... Oh, here we go. Shackle again. This is going to be a quick pick off on that Chaos Knight. I thought you were tanky, as the DD Rune makes very, very swift work of the enemy carry. Fight recap. Only 500 gold swing at the end of the day, considering this Wind Ranger is just so far ahead. I can't tell. It seems like the shackles are really good, but it seems like also EHOME just aren't able to respond as effectively as they might need to against this Wind Ranger right now.
Yeah, usually when you're dealing with a Wind Ranger, you want some sort of defensive support, like a Winter Wyvern or a Dazzle for Embrace or Grave, respectively. And that's something that Newbie Young can respond to quite well, but EHOME just can't do anything. When your carry's getting gone on, even if there was heroes behind him, the Bounty and the Undying can really just look at him as he goes down. Maybe drop a Soul Rip, but that's about it. Tier 2 tower and mid's going to fall to the remainder of that DD, and Newbie Young are just controlling this map. EHOME, they're just one or two smokes or one or two fights from this game being over. In fact, it's looking really bad.
So the thing that I was going to mention there, you sort of piqued my curiosity as well. You know, you take a look at the way that the Frankfurt Majors ended up working out, and I felt like the story of that patch by the end of it, or of that tournament by the end of it, was the play of the defensive supports and the way that those ended up working out. You think about game one of OG versus Secret there, and really what ended up, I felt like, winning OG that game was the Winter Wyvern play and the Dazzle play, which are just so on point. And it seems to me like we're moving more and more into a situation where with this patch, if you're able to keep your heroes alive, if you're able to have those defensive supports who are at least able to burst on out those spells, not quite able to hit that shackle in the mid lane, you're going to win the game. And I think that we're going to see more and more prioritization of those supports until 6.86 pops out.
It's less about the initiations now and more about the counter initiations. Like if we look at EHOME's lineup, they have a lot of ways to start fights, but Newbie Young have just been approaching these engagements so nicely after getting jumped on. The shackles are always on point. Your Winter's Curses are completely disruptive, and EHOME can't follow up appropriately. I don't think we've seen this game a blink and crush into the Lena combination outside of that one pickoff on the Alchemist in bottom lane.
Right, and they need so many more of those to be able to make it work. And you can't necessarily rely on pickoffs because vision game has also become so much more important. You know, as we do end up seeing YCC again get tracked up and going to try and chase after this bounty hunter here, isn't going to be able to find him, unfortunately. But nonetheless, like the vision game that you end up getting with Slardar is pretty important. Tusk also, TA, a couple of the other big heroes that are in this patch that end up giving you that vision advantage. If you're able to take that, being able to find pickoffs is so much more difficult. And I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how teams react as we move forward into the sort of waning days of this patch.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how the game develops in the next patch, but that's a ways out. For now, everything's kind of slowed down in this game. I don't think Newbie are in a situation where they want to risk anything. They know they're super far ahead. They know their Alchemist has all of the farm. But they also know that there's no real risk in taking this game to a later stage. You can pick up a blink on the Winter Wyvern, you can completely cap out this Wind Ranger and Alk, and there's not much EHOME can do about it. And at the very least, wait for this next Roshan, which has the potential to spawn any minute now, and I think that's what Newbie are going to do. For now, let's just keep these lanes pushed out and constrict the farming space of the CK. Once the CK gets his BKB, that's at least something that might be able to turn around the fight for EHOME. And even without having a lot of items, CK's illusions, especially if he gets lucky with that extra one off of Phantasm, can still do a lot of damage if given the space. So we'll have to see if that's going to be enough to hold the high ground for EHOME.
Also the crits. I mean, that's the
Oh
thing
yeah, for
about
sure.
this hero is he's just so much hit or miss, and if he hits, it's just devastation. If he doesn't hit, then it's just sort of like a little kitten scratching at you. They do end up getting not quite a complete shackle, but Freeze is still going to end up going down there. Tusk gets the final hit as the shards do come through. Now it looks like CK might be in a little bit of trouble. There's the Glimmer Cape coming through. They end up topping out the dust as well, but not wanting to commit anything as of yet. As we talked about, still waiting for that Roshan to get back up and everybody to be in fine form to take it on out. Soul Booster finished on the Alchemist, just waiting for that other 600 gold roughly before he ends up picking up the Octarine. Do you think it's worth it to go straight Octarine or save for buyback at this stage?
I don't think Joshua really needs to save for a buyback. The snapback potential coming out from EHOME, their ability to translate like an Alchemist pickoff into a tower push, is very little to none. Their actual tower DPS is not that great if they have to commit the Phantasm to the Alchemist kill, which at this point it looks like they probably will. Another thing to keep in mind for the Chaos Knight is the mischance on his illusions from the Radiance burn might be very annoying, even though the BKB has himself covered. Now, Newbie going to the Roshan pit, if they pick up this Aegis, it's going to be so hard for EHOME, excuse me, to defend against Newbie, and he will go ahead and just pick up that Octarine. Let's see if they're up for the task. It looks like they're not going to contest this Roshan, even though they probably have a pretty good idea it's going down. They know they can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, this is this is a little bit disheartening at this point. You know, I kind of wonder. Sometimes we talk about like BKB being game losing items. Do you think that's the case with this one? Would something else like a Mantis style have been a little bit better for the greater DPS output, or does he really need
No.
that BKB?
The issue for CK is a single item is just not going to do it when you're this far behind the enemy carries. He's at a 12,000 net worth disadvantage against the Alchemist, and he's getting doubled up by the Wind Ranger. I mean, at this point, you probably look to cost-efficient items as his next pickup, like an Armlet, but I don't think the BKB is to blame. It's just the lack of farm.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Well, we'll see how this ends up going. Wind Ranger picking on up the Chrysalis is 15-0-4 currently with 17k net worth. They do end up jumping forward on her. Need to be a little bit careful. Crush does end up getting committed. The Shuriken Toss coming in as well. They're going to be able to get out a lot of damage, but still surviving throughout all of this. The Winter's Curse is going to come on and deal a lot of damage with Alchemist hitting away on top of both the Bounty Hunter and the Undying. There goes the Tombstone in just a second, and even though Laguna Blade was committed, Crush was committed, Amplified Damage was committed, this Wind Ranger still stands. GG ends up getting called 30 minutes into it as this hero just took over this game. 15-0-6 is the final score for her.
Yeah, I'll be honest, that last fight was so sad coming out from EHOME. It's not how they wanted it to start. The Chaos Knight has to pop his BKB very early on. He drops to low HP. His Phantasm Illusions are too low to do anything, really, and they attack onto a Cold Embrace Wind Ranger. They don't even get the Aegis. And to remove all doubt, Fire Spirits made that Chaos Knight's illusions next to worthless. Just a well-executed second half of the game coming out from Newbie. They felt unfazed after a subpar laning stage.
Well, we'll see how this next one ends up going. We're going to be moving on to Game 2 in just a few seconds here. Stick around, everybody. This is the Dota 2 Star Ladder, China Series, upper brackets, and the loser of this one's going to have to go on down to the lower bracket, obviously. Meanwhile, the winners move on. So see how this ends up going. We do also have another 2 series afterwards, so stick around if you want some more Dota 2 action. Again, Lyrical Dota and GrandisV. See you guys in a few.